These notes are going to be the first grade of the 6 weeks, so when I come back to school on Tuesday, before we start taking more notes, I'm going to check your spiral and see that you have these. I'm going to be looking for special things, so if you have them, that's a free 100. If you don't have them, then it's not going to be a 100. So at the top of your notes, you need to put 14.1 graphing on the coordinate plane as your title. Remember, it's really important that you put titles on your notes, because when I ask you to prove to me that you took these notes, I'm going to say, where's 14.1? You need to be able to find them quick. Okay, so a big part of graphing on the coordinate plane is vocabulary. There's a lot of vocabulary on here, and most of you learned these vocabulary words in elementary school. So I want you to take a second to look over these words. You can write them down now, or you can write them as you go. Number one, a coordinate plane. Okay, the coordinate plane is the picture that appears when you cross two number lines. Okay, the picture that appears when you cross two number lines. Write that down. And when I talk about the picture, I'm talking about this thing right here. So if you want to draw an x-axis and a y-axis, okay, and when you do that, you just drew a coordinate plane. This is the number 2 right here. Okay, axes, and now I'm just going to go over here to the notes. The two number lines are called the axes. Okay, so the two number lines are, one of them is here and the other one is here. So one goes sideways and the other one goes up and down. Okay, the axes are the two number lines on the coordinate plane. Number 3 is the x-axis, and the x-axis is the horizontal axis. The y-axis is the vertical axis. It's the one that goes up and down. So when you go look at your picture that's over on the side, the x is right there and the y is right there. They almost always put that on there, but not all the time. Look at the coordinate plane on example 1. See how they drew the x right there and the y right there? That is a reminder to you 6th graders that x is a horizontal, it goes sideways, y is a vertical. When you look at the letter y, you see, I'm right here right now, you see a vertical axis right there. Okay, maybe that should help you remember. The origin is right in the middle. Look at the picture where I'm drawing. I'm putting a big green dot. That's the origin. It's at 0, 0. It's where the x and y axes cross. Okay, the quadrant, or a quadrant, is like when you have your coordinate plane split up into 4 parts, each part is numbered. So look at the picture here. You have quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. And they use Roman numerals to number those. Okay, so, whoa, that's weird. Wonder why it does that. See if I can put it back where it belongs. All of a sudden, I don't like that. Okay, quadrant. Okay, so I'm going to draw a coordinate plane. All right, this is quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? When you were in elementary school, you did most of your graphing in quadrant 1. Almost everything. Okay, an ordered pair is the two numbers that they use to name a point. Okay, so they just tell you where that point on the graph is, And that's the same thing as coordinates. The coordinates are the numbers also. Okay, so they'll call them coordinates. They'll call them an ordered pair. The x-coordinate is the first number of an ordered pair. And the y-coordinate is the second number of the ordered pair. And we can remember that because x comes first in the alphabet. X, Y. Okay, so I'm going to look at this example right here. -1, -5. That's an ordered pair. You go to -1, which is to the left, and then there's -1, and then down to -5. And there it is. -1, -5 is right here at this red dot. Okay, get these vocabulary words written down. Okay, so these questions, you don't need to write them down. I just want you to listen. I'm not going to have you draw a coordinate plane. It would be difficult to do. So let's look at these questions. If both coordinates of a point, well, yes, go ahead and write these down. Write this down. I'm going to be looking for this. Okay, if both coordinates of a point are negative, in which quadrant is the point located? So, for example, -3, -5. Okay, you're going to go to the left because negative, here's 0, 0. Negative numbers are to the left of that. So you'd go 3 to the left and then -5 for the y coordinate. Would you go up or would you go down? It's negative, so you'd go down. When we learned about integers, this helps you with that. So what quadrant is this? Remember, this one is 1, 2, this one is 3, and this one is 4. Okay, so and when both points are negative, you're in quadrant 3. Okay, so you wrote that down. Here's your answer. Describe the coordinates of all points in quadrant 1. Okay, so when you're in quadrant 1, all points are positive. Okay? Number 3. Write this down too. Explain why -3, 5 represents a different location than 3, 5. Okay, so let's look at -3, 5, and 3, 5. -3 is to the left of 0 on the number line. So you go 1, 2, 3 here, and then 5 is positive, so you'd go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that puts you in which quadrant? This is quadrant 2. This is 1. This one is 3. This one's 4. Okay, now let's look at 3, 5. 1, 2, 3, and then up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it is here. Okay, so why are they different? This is my explanation. They're different because, and I misspelled because, they are different because -3 takes you left and +3 takes you right. Remember that first number puts you on the x-axis. A lot of times kids think of the fact that you have to, let me pick a different color so I can show you. Students sometimes think that you have to run before you jump. So you go here, you run along this axis before you jump. Or sometimes if you go in, like you jump into a swimming pool, you jump and you go down. Run and then dive. Dive down. Either way, you're on the x-axis before you're anywhere else. Okay, now I'm going to just go over some of these questions with you, and please do not write these down. Just listen. Okay, we're right here. Identify the coordinates of each point. Name the quadrant where each point is located. So let's find G. G is right here. So how do we get there? Where do we run to first? We run over to positive 4. So that's going to be our first point, our first coordinate. And then we go down to negative 4. So to name these, you put the x coordinate first, comma, the y coordinate second, and then you put them in parentheses. And what quadrant did you end up in? You ended up in quadrant 4. Let's find E. E is right here, so I had to go, where did I run to? Negative 2. Where do I jump to? 1, 2, 3, 4. Positive 4. Okay, so a negative and then a positive went over to the left and then up, and that put me in quadrant 2. Let's find F. F is here. 1, 2, 3 to the right, and then 1, 2 up. So 3, I had to run to 3 and then jump to 2. So there's my ordered pair, and that's in quadrant 1. And then H is here. So I run to negative 1 and I dive 1, 2, 3 to negative 3. Negative 1, negative 3. And that puts me in quadrant 3. Okay, again, I don't want you taking notes, I just want you listening. It says reading scales on axes. The scale of an axis is the number of units that each grid line represents. So far, the graphs in this lesson have a scale of 1 unit, but graphs frequently use other units. So they want us to look at example 3, and they're saying that they have labeled every 10 miles. That means that, like, the line in between 0 and 10 would be what? That would be 5. And what would be in between 10 and 20? That would be 15. And then they're counting by the same thing on the y-axis. They're counting by 5s. So it says each grid square is 5 miles on a side. Gary's house is at negative 25, 15, which is 25 miles west and 15 miles north of the city. Okay, so here you also have to remember directions. We'll never eat soggy waffles. Okay, so he goes to negative 25, that's here. He goes west 25 miles, and then he goes up 15 miles, that's north, and then Gary's house is there. So B says, describe the location of Jen's house relative to Gary's house. So to get from Gary's to Jen's, we don't have to go up or down. Let's count by fives. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So it's 30 miles this way, which is east. 30 miles east of Gary. Right here, Jen's house is located 6 grid squares to the right of Gary's house. Since each grid square is 5 miles on a side, her house is 6 times 5, which is 30 miles east of Gary's. Ted lives 20 miles south and 20 miles west of the city represented on the graph in example 3. His brother Ned lives 50 miles north of Ted's house. Give the coordinates of each brother's house. Okay, so I'm going to delete some writing up here. I'm thinking this problem through. Ted lives 20 miles south. So again, I'm going to label this just so I remember. Never eat soggy waffles. Ted lives 20 miles south, so that's going to be here. And then 20 miles west. Okay, so this is where he actually lives. Not really here. Okay, that's where Ted lives. So I'm going to put Ted there. And then his brother Ned lives 50 miles north of Ted's house. Okay, so 50 miles north. Remember, each little square is worth 5 miles, so let's go 50 miles north. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. So his house is up here. Okay, so Ted is at negative 20, negative 20. And then his brother, I wonder if they're twins since they have such matchy-matchy names. Ned, you had to go to negative 20 miles west to get to Ned's house, but this time you went up. And where did we end up? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Positive 30 to get there. Okay, so that's where he lives. Okay, now I need you to go ahead and do dashboard assignment. Dashboard 14.1. Yes, it's for a grade. So in my grade book, I'm going to have notes for 14.1 and then dashboard 14.1. So when you go to Skyward, you'll see those there waiting for you. There'll be a check mark and it'll say that you haven't done it yet because you haven't done it. This is due tomorrow. Okay, again, you don't need to take notes. I just want you to listen and watch. Point A, which is right here, is 5 units where of the origin, left or right? It is left of the origin. And then 1 unit up or down? Up. Its coordinates are, it would be -5, +1, and then it is in quadrant 2. Point B is, here's point B. Okay, remember we go left or right first on the x-axis. So how many units over is it? It's 2 units right of the origin. And then how many units down? It's all the way right here at -3. So it's 3 units down from the origin. Its units are +2, -3, and it is in quadrant 4. Okay. Number 3, graph and label each point on the coordinate plane above. So let's do point C. It's at -3.5, so 3 is here. So a half would be halfway between 3 and 4. -3.5 and then 3. 1, 2, 3. So it's right there. I'm going to put a C there. And then D is at 5, 0. So run to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then jump 0. That means don't go anywhere after that. D. Okay. Describe the scale of the graph. So what are we counting by on this graph right here? Here's the number 1, and there's a mark before it. So we're not counting by 1/2, we're counting by a half. So each square is half a unit. Half a unit. So plot point A at -1/2, 2. So -1/2 is here, and then +2, I'm going to jump up to 2, and that's here, because there's where 2 is. That's A. Plot point B at 2.5, 2.5. So 2.5 would be here, and then -2 would be down here, because here's -2. So where that line is and where this line is, where they cross, that's point B.